All right. Hey there. Oh, you want to get something?
He's still in school. He's getting his license for him.
I had several people ask, why did you do this? Well, nobody does anything alone, but I had a whole lot of help. I'll come to that in a minute. But this truly has been a dream of mine for a long, long time, and now you finally made my dream come true. Good, all right. And a lot of you have come from many miles away. Goodness, we're from Greenwood, Mississippi. We're 3 contingents are here from Georgia, from all over North and South Carolina. And Joe and Lucille Hip are from Violence. And Joe, my mother lived in Teachie, a little town down in Euclid County, and it had a population of 43. and it was on my North Carolina map. But Violence is not on my North Carolina map. Well, I believe you'll put it on there, but we're real glad to have you here tonight. Now, in addition to traveling a lot of miles, a lot of us have had to go to a lot of trouble to get here. For example, Alma and Glenn Connell postponed their annual pilgrimage to Florida for 10 days to be with us tonight. And I'm sure a lot of us had to juggle schedules, and some of us had it a little bit more difficult to get here than others, but all of this makes it more meaningful to me that we were able to collect such a group as this here tonight. This dream became reality over in Gastonia several months ago. Ralph and Elna Jonas and I and Bob were having dinner with Ralph and Elna, and I asked them what they thought of the possibility of having a reunion. And they were excited about it. They said, well, it would be good, but we'll need a quarterback. And I told them, well, I'm not much of a football player, never was, but I would give it a shot, so here we are. The most difficult thing, of course, was securing the names and addresses of everybody. And I called Betty Bye, and have you ever seen Betty Bye when she was not excited about something? That's just a fine person to start with, and she said, well, Stiles, I'll help you get some names and addresses. She called Mary Frances Belcher, and 2 days later, I had 2 full typewritten pages of names and addresses from Mary Frances, and incidentally, she's still with GMAC, but I believe she's announced her retirement when in January and February sometime soon. March. Okay. Well, in addition to Mary Frances, I called Lee Henley, and he called Brooks Shuping, and I think he called Bill Tyson, and before you know it, we just had everybody working on it. The snowball had started and it kept growing. So I want to thank all of those that did help to gather this group here. Now the purpose of the gathering is to renew friendships and to have some lighthearted fun. And the only serious statement I'm going to make here all night, I'm going to make it right now. And it's simply this. We never know what kind of an influence we have on other people. But we do know what kind of influence other people have on us. And you folks have had a very profound influence on me. And I don't think I have the words to tell you just how you changed my life, but you really did. And every time I think back on my beginnings with GMAC, I laugh. And without you handling me the way you did, I don't know what may have become of me. But to get things in perspective now, I'm going to have to give you a few facts. And I'm going to keep it short because I'm certainly not going to do much of the talking here tonight. But somebody's got to get this thing started by recalling some items from the past. And when I graduated from Davidson in January of 1951, I was about the most naive and wet behind the ears person that ever was graduated from Davidson. Now, Joe Bell was a fraternity brother of mine, and he was a year or two ahead of me, and he became employed with GMAC. And he would come back to the Davidson campus and tell of the wonderful job he had. He'd say, gosh, I drive a company car, I have an expense account, I'm out in the open field, I don't have anybody looking over my shoulder, I arrange my own schedule. At the end of the week, I sign my own timesheet and send it in. And I said, man, that's the job for me. But he failed. But he failed to tell me that he worked 16 hours a day and only got paid for 8. You know, just a little minor detail that you failed to bring in there. Well, I graduated from Davidson on a Tuesday. I interviewed Harold Johnson on a Wednesday, and he asked me if I would become the Albemarle field representative beginning Thursday. Now, were they hard up for employees, or were they? Well, my older brother was a naval pilot during World War II, and he married a girl from Albemarle. And when they would come home from on leave, she, of course, would want to go visit her relatives. And invariably, when they would come back from over there, he'd say, Stiles, Albemarle has got to be the hellhole of the universe. So I just wondered, I said, hey, what am I getting into? But anyway, I later formed my own opinion of Albemarle, and it was quite the opposite from my brother's opinion. There you go, George, that better? Don't we agree with that? But my first week on the job, let me tell you what happened, man. I've already told you that I was naive. Well, I was reviewing the delinquent list with the bookkeeper at Confederate Motor Company. And I was trying to impress her and tell her how hard I was working. And you know, all dealerships have chronic delinquents. And every bookkeeper knows who those chronic delinquents are. So I was going down this list, and I came to this fellow's name, who was a chronic delinquent. And I said, now he's going to be in to pay Saturday. And she said, well, how do you know? And I said, well, I went out to see him, and he told me he would. She burst into laughter, and she said, young man, I don't mean to discourage you, but you'll never make it with GMAC. Well, I was naive and I was conscientious, but I was also hungry. I had to eat from somewhere, so I stuck it out a little bit longer. Well, everyone at GMAC was very kind to me, and goodness, I just don't know where to begin. I will say, we all remember Dot Long. She was my first impression of the office at GMAC. Pat Thornburg, hello.
Hello, Stiles.
Excuse me for that interruption, but I hadn't seen Pat before now. But Dot Long was a switchboard operator. Everyone knows what a public relations person she was. And my superiors, starting with Mr. George Crispa, Mr. Gus Baldwin, Mr. Harold Johnson, Bill Baldwin, Truett Long, Bill Brown, Lee Henley, all of these folks had a tremendous bearing on my early maturity. Can I put it that way? And you ladies were very important to me also. My goodness. I used to be scared to death to come into the office from the field. I told you I was naive, and I admit it. But the girls, you ladies, were very kind to me. You were helpful. When you needed to fuss at me, you did it tactfully. That was very important. Also, you sent us out to 508s. I was always glad to get the 508s. You men remember what they are. But I have a very fond memory of Doris Deal, Marcel Moore, Betty Bye, Marge Simpson, Edmund Carpenter, and I could just point my fingers at just about everyone here and tell you of a positive effect that you've had on my life. And then I come to my peer group, my contemporaries, my social base, and that would consist of Bob Simpson, Ralph Jonas, and John Lampley, and They tried to lead me down the wild astray. Well, I resisted them. By the same token, I tried to lead them down the straight and narrow, and I was not too successful with that either. But after a while, Ralph and I were transferred into Charlotte as credit men, and we had a bachelor apartment that lasted for...
You don't have to tell everything you know.
I'm going to tell them how you finally wised up. After living for me for a year and a half, he swapped me for Eleanor Byers and Jonas. And that, I think, was probably the smartest move he ever made. Now, Eleanor, let me point out here, though, all the good habits that he has, I taught him. All the bad habits he had before I had anything to do with it. Well, to make a long story short about my part here, I feel very fortunate to have been with GMAC for 10 years, which translates into the fact that I was very fortunate to be associated with you folks for 10 years. I feel those 10 years were probably the most formative 10 years of my life. My children have heard me say that. You took me under your wings and you nurtured me. I was impressionable and you taught me. And you made me a better person, and I thank you for it. Now, that's all the serious stuff. I had to get that off my shoulders, though. But now, let's have some fun. I'm going to start off with an incident that I wonder if John Lampley remembers. John, where are you? There he is. This happened about 20 or 25 years ago. I bumped into you. I haven't seen you since then. On a golf course at Rockfish Country Club in Wallace, North Carolina. And I was surprised to see John, but I was delighted to see him. And after exchanging some greetings, he said, you know, this fool from Wilmington, he thinks he can beat me. And he says, before I leave here today, I'm going to own his house and his car. And John, I don't know whether you ever got them, but I hope you beat him that day. Now, seriously, the program from this point on is going to depend on each of you. I hope that some of you will share some instances that you fondly remember. We have a portable microphone here that can be used. I'm sorry we couldn't have gotten a little bit more congenial, a more centrally located room so that maybe we wouldn't have had to use a microphone, but we'll have to just do the best we can. So I'm asking for volunteers. Who wants to stand up and tell something interesting? That's a bad way to put it, but I told you in my note, there's not going to be much of a program, so Lee, you want to? Lee's a wonderful storyteller, so.
I've never been put in this position before, but I'll tell you one thing. Styles Marquis was the most gung-ho, naive, just like he said, individual you can imagine. And my first impression of him was meeting Harper Dupont in Hickory. I promised you I wouldn't tell us.
Yes, you did.
After reading the manual for a week and going through the usual, Harold Johnson told me to go to Hickory to Bottle Bernard's and meet Harper Dupont. But Styles, being conscious, had his hat on, that black Chevrolet, took off from there, and he saw a sign that said, Wade Trucks. So Styles didn't see the truck part. He just pulled in up there, and the highway patrolman came out and said, what are you doing here? And he said, well, I saw a sign that says, come in here. He said, He looked in the back seat and saw a raincoat with the neck of a bottle of spirits out the side. He said, young man, what do you have here? Styles started stuttering and said, oh, well, that was last night. He said, what do you have in your trunk? And before Styles could turn around, he opened the trunk and found 7 golf clubs and 4 more bottles, partially used. He said, young man, you go over there and sit down. I'm going to call my sergeant. Old Styles he thought, Lord, What am I gonna do? So he gave Harold Johnson as his boss in Charlotte, and he sat over there on the sidelines thinking they're gonna take my car, ruin my job, and Stiles waited about an hour, and finally, Harold Johnson must have told him something. They got him off the hook. But then he went on to meet Harper Newbold, and from then on, he never did take anything in his automobile. Stiles, I'm sorry.
Instructions from the office to get all the contracts good and help the dealer anyway. So when the dealership down there, and the dealer says, I don't have any new cars to sell, but I've got a cotton pickle back here, and I got it sold if I get a contract on it. So I ask you always being helpful, said Al. And over a period of a couple of hours, I worked out a contract. Same to the office. Next day, he got a call from the office, said, come into the office, I want to talk to him. So he went in the office, and Crystal took him in there. Here's a private office in there on the 7th floor of the Johnson building. Talked about the conditions in the area, and then Crystal looked out the window of the bank building over there, and he said, Askew says, you had a dealer who wanted to sell that building, how much would you lend him on it? Askew says, I don't know. So we're not in the real estate business. He says, I'm glad you understand that, Askew, and I want you to understand we're not in the cotton picking business. My monopolizer, but Ralph reminded me one. I'm down the same area in Orangeburg. I repossessed this 47 Chevrolet. The guy had taken the motor out and tried to repair it. He couldn't. So I talked him into putting it in the trunk of the car. And it didn't have a front bumper, so I talked his boy into driving it for me. We were going down the road. Happened to think of this guy we knew that had a little service station beside the road. He sat out in front of the service station in a chair all the time. You see, I had miles of direction. So I got this boy to get me up to about 60 miles an hour and cut the length. I went and climbed in there and pulled up the thing. And the guy came out and I said, how about checking for oil? And he pulled his rag out and picked it up, looked in there and put it back in the stick. Took it back down, he walked over, he sat down. He said, I don't know what you're pulling and I'm not going to try to figure it out.
While you're coming up, Lynn, I'm going to let these folks down here know that this is a portable microphone and you won't have to walk quite so far.
You want me to take that one?
Well, no, you're in good shape right there.
Okay.
But this ought to be to just put this down here. Will y'all feel free to use this? Go ahead.
Okay, I think most of you guys realize that Lance and I both were from the Wilmington branch, most of our tenure down there, and I think really about the funniest thing ever happened to us. We had some friends that came down, and incidentally, John and I roomed together. We were single, and we had women running in and out of there best we could all the time.
Tell it all, brother.
Yeah.
Affection is good for the soul.
Anyway, we had some friends that were coming up from Fayetteville, which is just down the road, and they were going on a cruise to Bermuda. So John had some friends somehow or other, and I did too. They invited us over for a drink, on the cruise ship before they took off. And it was sometime during December, I think, when this happened. It was sleeting, snowing, and all that stuff, And so we go down, we ride in my car, and we get down there, and John goes to see his friends, I go to see mine. I get in there, and we start slugging drinks, and all this kind of stuff, Time kind of crept up on me a little bit, All at once I heard the horn go, whoa, about 2 or 3 times, I said, maybe I ought to get off this damn thing, I think sleep. So anyway, my friends take me back up topside, and I get up there, and we probably about something like 10 or 10 or 15 feet away from the dock, there was Lampley down there and said, Rex, jump! You can't do it. You gotta work tomorrow. You can't do it. That's back we used to have to work on Saturday morning. I know some of you remember that. See, he knew he's gonna have to work if I live. See, that's the whole problem. So anyway, he kept saying jump. I said, no, I ain't gonna jump. You know, it's cold down there, you know, and all that stuff. He said, well, how am I gonna get home? So I threw him my car keys, believe it or not, off of the boat, and he called them, and he went home. So here I go, you know, I'm on the boat headed to Bermuda. So I get hold of one of the people there, and I say, look, I'm not supposed to be on here. What can we do about this? So they take me to the captain. You know, took me up to the captain, and I said, you know, I'm sorry, sir, but I failed to get off of this boat. And, you know, I need to be to work in the morning if I can. And he said, well, there's no problem here. He said, you just, what you do, just go on down. We got a lounge down there. They serve drinks and all that. So buy yourself a drink, too. We'll send you back on the tugboat. It's pulling us out of the harbor. So I felt pretty good, you know, about that. That's super, you know. So I went down. Well, first of all, I didn't have any money. I forgot to tell you that. I didn't have a dime. You know, somehow or other, I forgot to get the pocket. I said, sir, I don't have any money. You know, I can't buy a drink. He said, well, just go down there and tell him I said to give you that. All you want. I said, okay. So I was getting along pretty good so far, you know. So I go down there and I drink liquor, you know, they pulling us out the harbor of Wilmington. They're all the way to Southport now with a tugboat, see, from Wilmington. So while I was on there, another couple got stranded too. They wanted in the same predicament that I was. So anyway, I thought that was good. They could get me back to Wilmington somehow, you know. So finally, we get to Southport, and somehow or other, we managed to get back to Wilmington. We got there. The other guy had a car, and when we got there, the thing had a flat tire. I couldn't believe this, you know. It was my night, apparently. So been drinking liquor all night long, you know. And I got back to where John and I were staying. John's been asleep, you know, 8 hours, you know, while I was coming along. I was scheduled to work the next morning. I said, John, you know, I've had a hell of a night. You know, I'm drunk, and I can't go to work. John said, the hell you are, it's your turn.
It's not easy to drop to the schedule, substitute drop going on.
Okay, and you're right, John. But anyway, I think I had a little more than you did. But anyway, as loyal as I tried to be, you know, with GMAC, you know, I know all my fellow employees remember how loyal I was. Anyway, I get back, you know, and I just crossed the bed and took a shower. Went down to work at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I got in at 7. You know, I said, Lord, I hope my dealer doesn't call me today. I don't know what I can figure. You know, they call in all these damn irregular deals and all that crap. You know, and you got to have your mind right whenever you do that, you know. So anyway, I got along pretty good. I hadn't had but one call, and I couldn't figure it. So I called the Charlotte branch up here and asked one of the girls if they'd figure it for me. And I said, you know, this thing's too complicated for me. So they figured it. I got rid of that. And I said, oh boy, I believe I got it made. You know, long about that time, I heard some key in the door on the branch. And guess who? L.B. Askew. So he comes in, you know, and he sits over at the other desk for a while doing something, you know, and all this. And a little bit he looked around at me and he said, Rex. I said, yes, sir. He said, are you drunk? I said, yes, sir, I am. You guys think I'm kidding, but this is the damn truth. I said, yes, sir, I to you piece by piece about what had happened all night, you know, and all this kind of stuff, trying to get home. And I said I knew I had to come to work because I couldn't get Lampy to come. And I told him the whole story. And when I got through, it tickled him so good you couldn't believe it. He said, I ain't never heard anything like that before in my life. He said, just go on home and go to bed. I'll tend to the office for you. I said, that's the end of my story.
But those that do will get a little charge out of this, I think. We had pretty big territories back in those days. I'm talking 46. And my territory was from Rowan County to Webington. The 200 miles plus 30 or 40 miles in either direction after that. But anyway, I had quite a few fellas come through because we were hiring a lot of men back in those days, and girls too for that matter. But one in particular who remained anonymous. He's not here tonight, I know that for a fact. So, but I still won't call his name. He wanted to know what the itinerary was, where we planned to be. I was training this guy. And I told him, well, we're going to be in Longton at the Lorraine Hotel. And we're going to be in Fayetteville at Prince Charles. And in Wilmington at Cape Fear. So I didn't know what he was talking about, but why he wanted to know where we were going to be. But anyway, when we got to those points, he'd always get phone calls from Charlotte. And I remember on occasion he'd say the same. And I found out that she was telling him that she loved him. My wife asked me one night why I said that. I said, well, why I didn't get out of the room and let him talk. And I said, well, I was too busy making out reports. Those reports were something else. But anyway, to get to the deal, this fella, and when we go to the general delivery office at the post office, he would get more mail than I did. And Lord knows we got enough for 510s back in those days. But anyway, we were at Route 1 Lumber Bridge. And we'd gone out there to see this customer. And his wife told us that he was out in the field. Well, this was about dusk dark, and he hadn't come in. But after a while, we heard a lot of cussing and carrying on, and a 4-mule team coming in pulling a disc harrow. And this customer was guiding the mules in. And I asked him if he was Mr. So-and-so. Yeah. I'd already seen the car, the collateral there in the yard, and it was a 41 Ford, and it had a flat tire on it. Looked like a prime repossession. So I asked him about the car. He said, take the damn thing. So we took the car, and this guy that I was training, I tried to get him to help me change the wheel. He didn't know how to jack the car up. The only thing he knew, I taught him how to do it on the spot, was to pump up the tire after I put the tube in it. So he pumped the tire up. I said, okay, we're going to take this car into Red Springs. And I said, you get in the company car and drive it, and I'll drive this repo. So we got on the way, and I left him there in the yard and figured he was coming on. I got about 6 or 8 miles down the road, somewhere along about Shannon, I guess, if anybody knows where Shannon is. I got to Shannon and started looking around for this anonymous guy. I didn't see him. So I just sat down on the fender of the car and waited. After a while he came along. I said, where the hell you been? He said, the traffic held me up. I said, what traffic? He said, well, he said, I had a little difficulty. He said, traffic held me up coming out of Lumber Bridge. And I hadn't seen a car in, I guess, 15 minutes. And I didn't know at that time that he didn't know how to operate that little gear shift lever about this long. You did it like this. You didn't take your hand hold of it like you would a lever in a flowboard. He didn't know how to get the thing in reverse gear. So I excused him from that because he really wasn't accustomed to that. And I already knew I didn't have one light on the repo. I said, I want to check the lights on this car. He said, okay. I said, are both headlights burning? He was looking me right in the eye. He said, yeah. I said, now you know damn well that there's not both headlights burning. I said, look at the headlights. He said, no, so this one's out. And I said, that's right. And I was fixing to tell him about the spiel, you know, and ask him to do something that I wasn't willing to do myself. I said, do you know why you're driving this nice company car? I had a black 46 Chevrolet that, man, it was nice. And I'm driving this rag. He said, yeah. I said, why is it? He said, I don't have a driver's license. I said, you mean they sent you out in the field here to be trained? And he said, well, I got it applied for, but said, I just haven't gotten it yet. And I said, well, what difference would it make for you driving this company car and me driving this rag, whether you had a driver's license? He said, well, I said, I figured you knew best, and you wanted to trust me with the company car.
Gene Miller said a minute ago when he first went down to Fayetteville, you know, that's what he said about Albemarle. I believe Fayetteville is really that place. And I went there, the last place I wanted to go. But then Gene followed me, and he said he went down there, and they were supposed to report to me down there, he said. And went into Brian Cadillac down there and said, we want to see Ralph Jones. They said, who? I said, Ralph Jones. He said, you mean tow bar. So now you got the picture. For some reason or other, I went from Fayetteville following this fellow that had a car way down the eastern part of the state. I think down around Harold's store, where the roads just go forever. And I did take possession of his car, took the tow bar up, and started back toward Fayetteville. And the roads get longer and longer, and then you get faster and faster. All of a sudden, I looked in my rearview mirror, and here was this car coming around. I said, gosh, he can't be doing that. So I knew I was touring this car, so I said, come on, come on. Didn't come around, he just sitting right there on the bumper. I said, what in the world going on? And then all of a sudden, I noticed there wasn't a driver in that car. My car was gone. That was my car up here beside me. Fortunately, I got the car back to Fayetteville. Frank Styles and good seeing all that. I haven't seen all of it yet, but it's been a lot of fun.
All those that work at GMAC at one time or the other asked the question, why? I'm sure. And when I first started at Hickory, I had a good trainer, but they didn't have him 30 hours, all 60 to 90 hours, and we really had to work hard. And Brooks Shooting was my credit man. And just about the time I was ready to quit one day, I got this nice little note from Brooks. And I'll never forget Brooks, and I appreciate it. He kept me on the job. The second thing I'd like to say is Lee Henley just bought a brand new 77 green Chevrolet Monte-Carlo. That's his pride and joy. And every once in a while, about 5 or 6 of them will go out and still work hard. Go to Price's Chicken Coop first, get some chicken coop lunch, go out to the park and eat lunch. Nice to meet you, Brooks, that day. And we went out and had the best lunch we ever had, the best time, got back in the car, and all of a sudden we're getting ready to leave. Max started doing this on the front seat, the floor. And Lisa, what are you doing, Max? What are you doing? He said, oh, I just got to go to the dog
GMAC back in the 50s. Where our funny tales to tell. One day we were sitting around talking and said, you know, I think we could write a book about GMAC and it would be a bestseller. Mary Frances says, well, nobody would believe it. And I said, well, maybe we could sell it just to GMAC people. And she said, well, only the GMAC people back when we started work would believe it. So that's about right. But talking about Ralph Jonas, well, first of all, when I went in the office and went through a little training period, reading the manual and so forth, Truett Long came by the desk one day, and when I was reading the manual, and I says, Mr. Long, I says, what kind of car are they going to furnish me out in the field? And he told me. And I said, you mean to tell me that General Motors is going to furnish me a Chrysler? He said, no, I didn't say Chrysler, I said Chrysler. And a Chrysler automobile was a two-door black Chevrolet. But anyway, Ralph Spade, Harmon Thunder, when I arrived down in Phelps on my first assignment, the salesman I did ask for Ralph Jonas. He says, you mean tow bar? And they had a little office back in the back bar and back there. Now, I tell you, Ralph was proud of that tow bar. Now, y'all won't believe this. Ralph, do you remember you had a suitcase to keep it in? He had a suitcase that he kept his tow bar in the back of his company car. Well, the Charlotte office sent Ralph a memo to go to somewhere up in Virginia to bring a car back. So, you know, that was back before they had contract drivers and wreckers. GMAC Charlotte never did believe in contract drivers, and never did believe in using a record, because somebody's already told a story about repairing the tire and all that. But anyway, we went up to Virginia, got this car, and Ralph took his tow bar out of his suitcase, hooked it up, and I says, Ralph, the memo here says a car will run. He said, I'd rather tow it. He says, we can talk along the way if we tow it, on the way back. So we were coming down the road and came into one of these places where you come into another highway, you know. And Ralph was sitting up there driving that thing with one wheel in one hand, had the cigarette in the other hand, just driving down the road. He says, you know, you got to know how to pull one of these things that tow bar. Just everybody can't do it. And about that time, when we got to that road, there's a guardrail over here, and the thing jackknifed on the route and slid into that guardrail and smashed it all up. And you know, that poor representative up in Virginia never could figure out how he overlooked putting the collision damage down on
getting us all together. It's strange that an outsider, you know, took the time to pay the expense and get us all together. You want to open it?
I'm afraid to, but I think I'm not going to be able to get out of it. You sounded so sincere.
So, you know, when he's out in Sin City, we want him to advertise for us. We want our retirement checks to come in, right? Well, I'm going to pick on a couple people tonight. And I guess my first one is going to be Lee Cartman. You know, we always, all of us adored Lee Cartman, especially the women. And I'm sure it's because he was single and he had those bedroom eyes. He was devoted GMAC man. However, if you had a run in your hose, Mr. Cartman could tell you where it was, which leg. And we remember every afternoon he would go up front, get the Charlotte News, sit back in his little corner, prop his feet up and read the paper. And we don't do that GMAC now. And another thing, let's see, I was going to tell you something that he did. Maybe I better not tell that. Okay, Snake Wilson. When we first started non-recourse repossessions, Snake Wilson would always have to go out on Wednesdays to sell the repossession. And he came back in a number of times on Wednesdays, and he always had, looked like ketchup on his collar. And we asked him what it was, what did he have for lunch, and he said salad. And we said, well, salad? What is that on your collar? And he said, well, it was ketchup. We said, well, when in the hell did you put, ketchup on the salad? You want to explain the the ketchup to us? Charlene Klein. We always ate lunch at the Charlottetown Mall. So one day, it took 2 cars to get a load of us out to the Charlottetown Mall. So we had lunch, and while we were out there, several of the girls had to run errands and pick up some things. So we got back to the office, there was no Charlene. So all of a sudden, Dot Long rings my number, and she says, Charlene's on the phone. I said, well, where is she? She said, I don't know, I'll let her tell you. So we had all come back to the office and left Charlene at the Charlottetown Mall. And one time, Mr. Jernigan, right before Charlene got married, he was so quiet, naive, and such a kind person. And so we had wrapped up this little skimpy outfit for Charlene for a wedding night.
Does everybody want to see it?
And he was so embarrassed when he got this.
Mr. Jernigan wasn't here, but here is just part of what it looked like. And Mr. Jernigan, he was so shy of a look.
I do think it's marvelous that Marquis did get us all together and took the time to pay the bill and everything. We're so gracious that you got us all together. And we've all had a marvelous time, haven't we?
Talk about going to work for GMAC, they had to be desperate when they hired me. I was an attorney at the Coca-Cola plant in Concord. I handled a few cases. I was so green that Glenn Arndt had got caught driving DUI, and they hired me. I rode the bus to Charlotte, got a company car, picked up Glenn, and worked for 3 weeks in Monroe, Concord around. And so when they turned me loose, the first car I repossessed, I couldn't even ride up to 591. That's the truth. I'm going to bite on Kirkman a little bit. Talk about him reading the newspaper. He's the only man I ever seen sit outside of Mr. Crisler's office and read a magazine. Down on Moorhead Street, after lunch, he'd pull out the bottom drawer of his desk and turn around towards his back, put his feet in it, and sit there and doze. Talk about fun experiences. They sent me to West Jefferson one time to tour repossession back. Sent Joe Hip with me. So it was an Oldsmobile, and I had a little light Chevrolet. I hooked a tow bar to it. I told Joe, I said, now, the hills are real steep, and I said, this is mountainous. I said, keep the brakes on it, because I said, this car won't hold that car back. So here I am going down the mountain, and my old car's getting faster than me standing on the brakes. I come to the curve, like that little light Chevrolet, I said, good Lord, so must not be putting on much brakes. I come to another corner and almost jackknifed on me. I said, God knows what's he doing back there. I looked in the rearview mirror and here sat Joe in the car. But I tell you, I had some good times. I enjoyed it. I wouldn't take
anything for the experience I had. And it certainly is good to see all of you.
Of a child. And he said, I'll tell you one thing, Styles, if it's a boy, we're gonna name it Gordon. If it's a girl, we're gonna name it Dixie Belle, because it was damn sure Jim that caused this. Well, Ari, we need some more participants.
I'll go. Medicine. I don't know what I'm doing here, but there are several funny things that I have to tell. One of them is on Snake Wilson. And one of the times his wife was going to have a baby, he came in, he said, you know what? He said, my wife's going to have a tumor, and it's got 2 arms and 2 legs. His way of telling us he was going to have another baby. Okay, a couple of things. Sid said he was going to tell this on me, so I'm going to beat him to it. Talk about young and naive. I came to GMAC right off the farm, and Bill Brown used to call me Sunshine. And the reason I was Sunshine, I was so glad to get off that damn farm. I didn't know what to do, milking cows and all that stuff. But anyway, one day, Sid and Richard and I were horsing around at lunchtime. Not anything like you people do at GMAC now. This was gentle stuff. Anyway, they chased me into the stock room. Well, they're holding me out, you know, holding me in there. And here I am shoving, let me out of here. And who do you think was on the other side but Mr. Chrysler? I went in and I just cleaned out my desk because I thought, well, that was the end. That was the end of me. And one other time, I don't know if you remember when we went to the 13th floor of the Johnston building and you couldn't see the clock. So Richard Henson brought an alarm clock one day. And at 5 o'clock, he just reached in his drawer, shut off the alarm, and got up. Of course, Miss Sarah told on him for that.
In fact, what I'm going to tell tonight is going to be on Styles. None of us that used to play golf with him were surprised that he did so well in life. Because if you ever negotiated with him on the first hole, trying to make a bet, he would eat your hand off. So when I came back to Charlotte, I'd heard about this guy, Marquis, what a great golfer he was. And I thought I was a pretty good golfer myself, so we hooked up one time. Of course, he beat the hell out of me. Next time I asked for some ups. For those of you who don't know what ups is, that's a way to sort of handicap it and have a little better bet. So he gave me 1 or 2. He kept on giving me some ups. Every time we played, he'd still beat me. He'd still tell me how well I played. As I paid him off, he always told me how well I played. But we finally got to the place that he was giving me like 2 bets, 4 and 5 up. He still beat me. So one Saturday we were playing at Eastwood. Harold Johnson didn't show up, and somebody else in the way of the bed. So we were playing with 2 other guys that we didn't know. And those of you who played at Eastwood knew you had to drop your ball in this little tube, wait for it to come out. So Style gets up, and he blisters his ball straight over the hill. These 2 guys look at each other, and they say, we're going to bet each other. So that meant I had to bet Styles. So Styles was very generous that day. He knew he'd been beating me like a drum for years. He said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you 9 up, 8 up, 7 up, 6 up, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. That's 10 bets. One stipulation. We will never tell this story. It's going to be told tonight. I went out and had my career round. Shot 38 on the front side, so clipped it pretty good. Came back in, had a hot dog and a big orange or whatever. Went out and played the next 9. I shot pretty good there, about 38 or 39. Never shot a score like that before. Beat him again. So we went in and we had another big orange. Only it had something else in it. And so he wanted to go back out, just the 2 of us then. So we went back out. And I played real good that day. Anyway,
anyway, we had this deal that we would never tell this story. Styles got into my pocket all the time, all those previous times. I got into his pocket that day, and I've never had a bet with him since.
Here. You know, when Betty got up and was talking about being so naive, in those days, we were very naive, and I never will forget, I'd only been at GMAC just probably a few months, and they announced, girls, tomorrow is sweater day. I thought, what in the world are they talking about, you know? I know Frankie Farrell, my right-hand man, I said, Frankie, what is sweater day? She says, the guys come in from field and all the girls wear a sweater. And one other thing, talking about being so naive, I was so naive in those days. And if you remember, girls, as soon as you got pregnant, you were gone, you know. And you don't show it all that you were expecting a baby. And anyway, finally, when I announced that I was pregnant and that my term was going to be up very shortly, I will never forget that Brooks Shupin came by my desk. And he says, Pat, what is this I hear about you? And I could feel my face just getting so red. I knew that I must have been just blood red. He says, Pat, it's okay. You are married.